It's not always smooth sailing. We've had some hiccups in the U.S.-India relationship, but I think right now it's particularly strong. And I think, the fact that we have weathered the differences over Russia is pretty remarkable. And I think, we're likely to see challenges in the future, but there is such a strong foundation now between our two countries that, has been built up over time. It spans the partisan divides in the United States. If there's one thing Democrats and Republicans can agree on, it's that the U.S. needs to have a good, strong relationship with India moving into the future. So I'm pretty bullish on the relationship overall. There could be something, a shot out of the blue that disturbs it, but I don't see that happening. But again, we're not going to agree on everything. And I think that the U.S. administration right now is pretty realistic on what to expect from India. If, God forbid, there was some kind of conflict in the Taiwan Strait, I think there is realism on India's response, but you may find that there are some U.S. officials who perhaps aren't as familiar with India's propensity for strategic autonomy that may think that India would, send warships. I don't think it would personally. I think India would be very cautious if there were a U.S.-China conflict over Taiwan. So I think, that's one thing that U.S. leaders need to recognize, that India will make its own decisions. India will do what's in India's interest. Given the uncertainty and unpredictable nature that, we're in the world today, it's critical, number one, that the U.S. remains focused on the Indo Pacific region and China. This has been one of the questions. Is this crisis in the Middle East going to distract U.S. leaders from the Indo Pacific? And I think it's very important that this not happen, because deterrence in this region is so important. And all of the initiatives that I talked about that the U.S. has started in the Indo-Pacific with its allies and partners, including India, is so important to keep those on track, to maintain the momentum as part of overall deterrence in the region. Because let's face it, we can't afford for deterrence to fail in the Indo-Pacific. You could say deterrence failed in Europe because the Russians invaded Ukraine. You could say deterrence failed for Israel because of the abominable Hamas attacks on October 7th against Israel. But we can't afford for deterrence to fail in the Indo-Pacific, which means the U.S. has to remain focused on these initiatives that it has been taking and building up this multifaceted kind of deterrence that is already in train. And so I think, that's what I would advise, maintain the focus on the Indo-Pacific and recognize how important deterrence is, because deterrence is about preventing conflict. You'll sometimes hear from within the region that, the U.S. is provoking conflict, the AUKUS initiative and these other initiatives that the U.S. is taking is somehow militarizing the region. Well, that's not the case. It's the opposite. This is about deterrence and preventing conflict.